As a UC Berkeley student and somebody who has spent hours and hours researching about the UC application, in this video I'll divide the whole application into 3 steps along with a few tips of how to make a strong UC application and helping you hopefully get into the top public universities in the world. So even if you haven't started the application or if you're a week before deadline, by the end of this video you'll know exactly what to do and will be way ahead of others who haven't watched this video yet. I've included timestamps below in the description, so feel free to skip around and come back later whenever you want. Let's dive right in. So the first big part of the application is the preparation beforehand. As you know, a lot of important things in life require preparation, like for exams, asking out a girl, that kind of stuff, all require preparation. And UC applications are not an exception. So there are 3 tips from me here. The number 1 is use the common data set. So there's this thing called common data set where every single school publishes, and each year the admission officers have all this data about the students who got in and who didn't get in. And they basically talk about the average GPA, the GPA ranges of the people who got in, like 25th percentile is this, 27th percentile is this, and the demographics, and what percent of the students are getting in, not getting in, that kind of stuff. So this can give you an idea of whether you have a shot to this school or you might not have a shot to this school, right? Tip number 2 for this part would be to use your personal email when you make a UC account. So most of you probably have a student account as well as a personal email, but for the UC application and all the other college apps, make sure you use your personal account because school emails can get deleted after you graduate, and then you don't want to miss any email updates from the UCs, such as getting off the waitlist or if they have further questions about your application and stuff. So make sure you use your personal account, and then some of my friends even made a separate Google account just for the college apps, and that's also fine. But make sure you check the emails regularly so you don't miss out anything. That's really important. So my tip number 3 for the preparation part is to brainstorm your essays way ahead of August 1st. So the UC application opens at August 1st and then it closes at like end of November or early December. However, what I would do is open a Word document or a Google Doc and then start jotting down my activities, awards, test scores, along with the essay prompts I'm choosing and what kind of stories I'm going to talk about, that kind of stuff. This way I can get a head start with my application and then save a bunch of time to review my application, polish it, and it would only work in a good way. The second big part of your application is filling out your facts. This part is where you fill out your personal info, college and majors you're applying to, the grades and test scores you got. So this part is pretty straightforward but tedious at the same time, and this is also where students get rescinded for making small mistakes here and there. So you need to make sure you double, triple check, and you might want some help from your family to make sure everything's correct. So the first thing here is the personal information section. This part is where they ask you about your contact information, where you live, where you have lived, what your parents' jobs are, what their income is, your educational background, and whether you are eligible for in-state tuition or not, that kind of boring stuff, along with more important stuff like if you're a first-generation college student, if your parents are working for the military, if your parents are divorced, if your family comes from a lower income background, that kind of important stuff. This can give context to your application and it can sometimes help your chances as well. Also, if you have any questions about like green card, visa, your residency status, make sure to ask your parents because that can change between in-state tuition and out-of-state tuition, which is obviously a lot of money. Next up on your application is choosing campuses and majors. The campus part of this is pretty straightforward. There are 9 UC campuses for undergraduates and you can choose however many you want to apply. You can apply to all of them or you can apply to like only UCLA, for example. The major part is more complicated. Since each school has strengths and weaknesses in terms of their programs, you can choose different majors for all of them, or you can choose similar or same majors for all of them. What I recommend is the latter, which is choosing similar majors for all of them, and I'll explain you why later in the essay section of this video. Another thing you can take a look at is the common data set, as I said earlier, and then look at the acceptance rates by major, which can give you an idea of the acceptance rates, right? Another thing to keep in mind is which college the major is in. Majors in the College of Engineering will have a much lower acceptance rate compared to majors in the College of Letters and Science, for example. So that can change your chances, and you should also take a look at whether your major is a Bachelor of Science or a Bachelor of Arts if you're applying to a science major. So Bachelor of Arts is usually in the College of Letters and Science, whereas Bachelor of Science is usually in a different college. Like for Berkeley, it's going to be College of Chemistry for chemistry. For UCSD and Irvine, it's going to be in the College of Physical Sciences for chemistry. So what this changes is not just the acceptance rate, but also the priority after you get in. So for Berkeley, when you enroll for classes, the students in College of Chemistry will have more priority than the College of Letters and Science students. So they can choose their classes first, and then they can take the spots first. So if you want that, you can apply for the Bachelor of Science, although it's going to be a lower acceptance rate. Another thing to keep in mind is whether your alternate major is considered or not. So for UC Davis and probably UC Berkeley as well, they don't even consider your second choice major even though they ask for it. UCLA doesn't even ask for the second major. So you can take a look, search that up on the internet, and then make decisions based on that as well. Yeah, let's move on. Next part is for UCSD applicants. So if you're not applying to UCSD, you can go ahead and skip using timestamps. But this part is super important to make sure you listen if you are applying to UCSD. So on the application, right after you choose your campuses and majors, there's a part where you rank the 8 UCSD undergraduate colleges. So what this changes is a lot of things. First, the graduation requirements. So some colleges have significantly easier graduation requirements, so that's a big part. Another thing is the food. Some colleges have more Asian food in their dining halls, while some have more American food, that kind of stuff. And number 3, locations. So some colleges are like right in the middle of the campus, whereas some colleges are like 20-minute walk from the campus. So if you're commuting every single morning and afternoon, that's a huge thing, right? Obviously the room layout is different. So make sure you choose wisely. And I asked the UCSD admission officers whether this matters at all in the selection process. Does it change your chances, basically? And they said it doesn't. They only see it after you get in. So it doesn't matter what your preference is. Just make sure you make a wise decision. So my recommendation is watch YouTube made by UCSD students where they talk about this stuff. Or if you have a friend that goes to UCSD, you can ask them. I have my rankings below in the description, so you can take a look at that as well. Now I want to talk about the most important part of your application, which is academic history. This part includes the school you went, the grading scale of each school, the classes you took, and the grades you got from each classes. This is about your primary high school, but also includes summer courses, college courses, and high school level classes you took during middle school. So make sure you list everything that's relevant to the A2G requirements, whatever that is. I have 3 tips for you guys here, and number 1 is use your transcripts side by side when you actually fill this out. So this is where you work for your 4 years, and you don't want to make any mistakes, and you don't want to get rescinded either. So you make sure you triple check with your transcripts on the side. Number 2 is check with your counselor or look up weird abbreviations like NH or W. NH would be non-honors, W would be withdrawn. These abbreviations you don't normally use can be confusing, so make sure you get everything right here. And if you did fail or withdrew from a class, make sure you type that down as well, because when you actually get in and commit to that school, you'll have to send your transcripts, and then they'll see that, and then you'll get in trouble. So make sure you list those classes as well. Number 3 is make sure you report the courses under the original school you got the credit from. This can sound confusing, but this is actually where a lot of students make mistakes, including myself. So if you took a summer course or a college course, make sure you list those classes under those schools instead of your primary high school. This is because when you actually get in and commit to a school, you have to send separate transcripts from each summer course or college course you took or a middle school class you took back in the day. Otherwise, you have to email the colleges one by one and then explain what happened and explain that I'm really sorry, and that would suck. Let's move on. The final part of filling out your facts is test scores. As most of you guys know, UCs don't give a toss about SAT or ACT scores anymore because they are test blind, unless they specifically ask you in an email. However, they still care about exams like APs, IBs, A-levels, TOEFL, and Duolingo tests, for example. So here you would list the type of test, month and year you took, and the scores you got. If you haven't taken the exam yet and it's planned, you can mark it as planned, but if you choose not to take it, later on, you have to report that to every single school you apply to, so keep that in mind. Here I will talk about APs in specific because that's what I took. If you got a solid score basically from a 3 above, you should report it. If you got a 1 or 2, you shouldn't report it because that's not a range they gave you credit for. And if you get a 1 or 2 on your senior year, exams at the end of the senior after you apply, that's not a big problem. They probably won't rescind you for 1 or 2 on the AP exams. Yeah, let's move on. Now, I want to talk about the final and third part of your application, which is expressing your character. This is the part where you should spend the most time on, and this is objectively the most important part of your application. So I want to begin without talking about the activities and awards section. Here, what the UCs want to see is commitment, progression, and leadership. Commitment is how long you spend time on, how much you care about it. Progression is how you grew over time, what skills you developed over time, and leadership is what roles you had in each activity. So in terms of the logistics, there are 3 parts for me here, and the first part is quality over quantity. So there are 20 spots to write of activities and awards, and you can choose from 6 different categories. And the questions they will ask you will change based on the category you choose. UC specifically say that they have no preference over which category is better than the others. And my recommendation is, obviously they're gonna read from top to bottom, so I'll recommend that you put your most passionate or the activities you committed the most at the top in decreasing order. Which leads into the next section, which is consistency and commitment. So here you want to make sure that you tick all the boxes for senior year as well if you are continuing the activity. And after 12th grade box is for students who are taking a gap year, so that's probably not for you. The average hour you spent should be an average, and make sure it doesn't contradict your other activities, because there's only 24 hours a day and there's only 7 days a week. If it adds up to like a weird number, that's a red flag, so be careful. Part 3 is about actually filling this out. There are 60 character limit for naming the activity and 350 character limit to describe the activity. So you basically only have 410 characters to describe what you did and what the activity is. They say that you should focus on what you did, what the roles you had, the responsibility, and the growth you had in each activity, rather than explaining about the activities itself. So be brief and accurate. My recommendation is you search up on the internet the strong activity and award list vocab. And feel free to save those character limits by using commonly used abbreviations, but if it's a unique abbreviation your school only uses, make sure you write that down, or if not, in the additional information section. Next, I want to talk about the common mistakes and misunderstanding a lot of people make. The first one is that you have to fill up all 20 activities. Myself included, and a lot of my friends did too, only filled up like 13 to 18 out of the 20 activities, and we were all successful in the UC application. As I said earlier, the whole point of this is quality over quantity. So instead of having 20 fillers in the 20, I would rather have 15 good ones, if that makes sense. So for me, I can probably make 4 baseball activities I tried. I just put it in one because school, club, travel ball, and tournaments can all be combined as baseball, and I wanted to save those 3 extra spots to other activities I did, and that could give better context to the application, and it will also look better as well. The second common misunderstanding is that you have to fill up all 350 characters. Although I said that there's a limited amount of spaces, yes, it is very short, but you can always be brief. If it's just an award, you only talk about what you did to accomplish that. It's gonna be like just studied, for example, right? I mean, you can use strong adjectives, but you don't have to be that wordy. Third one is that they don't even read this part because they only have a couple minutes per student or per applicant. Yes, I kind of agree with that, but the most important part of this UC application is probably grades, activities, and PIQs, so I think it's better to put this down thoroughly and make sure you convey all your message to the reader. Finally, this is the PIQ section. So here, you choose 4 out of the 8 prompts, and you want to put everything you have in these 4 essays. 350 words times 4 is 1400. So it would definitely take a month plus, if not more, to write these 4 essays. This is where you can just yap about everything you have and what you worked for in the 4 years, and describe and claim what kind of applicant, what kind of person you are. So take time to fill this part out. I would definitely draft it in a Google Doc and copy and paste it later, because it might not save and that would suck. I have a couple of things to talk about here, but the first one is the word count. I was reading one of my underclassmen friends' essays, and she was using like 3 sentences to explain her activity, and in my opinion, that's a huge waste of word count because you probably already described that in the activities and awards section. So because you only have 350 words here, you don't want to waste any spots, so you can be really brief if you're trying to restate your activity or your research program that you did in that junior year summer. For my essay, the least amount of words I wrote was 347 out of the 350. And a lot of my friends were doing that as well. I think the least you should write is 340. That's the minimum because 10 words is basically a short sentence. And if you add a single adjective and that makes your essay slightly better, you should definitely do that. And you don't want to leave any spaces for improvement when you actually submit it. When you're actually filling out this essay, you want to make sure each essay holds a theme in some kind of way, whether it's leadership, whether it's your kindness, whether it's your enthusiasm, or whether it's your interest in some kind of subject. Whatever that is, you only have 4 essays to write. My recommendation is to ask your friends to read it and get advice from them, because on God, they're so much better than the essay tutors that charge you $1,000 for a single essay. Earlier in this video, I said that I will explain you why you should choose similar majors for all schools. I'll answer that part. So if you're choosing the question number 6, which asks you about your major, your subject, what you write about in this essay should align with all the schools you're applying to regardless of the major you choose. So basically that's why I'm telling you you should choose similar majors for all schools if you are writing about this essay. But in my opinion, why subject, why major essays are the hardest to write a good one, because everyone has similar reasons to want to study that subject. Pre-med is a good example, right? Somebody you know is ill, the doctor treated them, I want to be a doctor as well. This is an awesome story, but if you're worried it's going to be cliche, you can always choose other prompts, because there's 8 prompts you can choose from. That's why I didn't choose this prompt. Yeah, you got to be really careful which prompt you're choosing. Last but not least is your additional information section. In the UC application, there are 2 additional information sections right after the grades and right after you write your essay. The one right after your grades is the part where you should write about like class conflicts, or if you failed a class because you were absent for half a semester, you can talk about that. And the one right after the essay section, which is way longer, you can talk about something that didn't fit in the word count from other sections, or if you have like special circumstances in your family or about yourself, or you can talk about activities that didn't fit in the 20s spots in the activities and awards section. But again, I don't think they'll read this part as much compared to other sections, so be brief here and make sure you write in bullet points and not in paragraph form, at least for the one after the essay, because this is not a 5th essay for the PIQ. If you made it to this part of the video, I would love to know your dream UC school, so comment down below, and I'll have all the reference materials down in the description, and feel free to check that out. I'll probably have somewhere up here the video where I talked about all my high school classes and the activities I did. Final disclaimer, I may have mistakes here and there, so please check the important facts by yourself, and good luck. Bye.